The presentation about introducing and integrating free internet legal resources into the classroom. My name is Jutek Lee from University of Miami Law Library. Here's Kuma Surya from Georgetown Law Library. Today we'll provide you the effective ways of approaching and evaluating internet legal resources, and we'll have a chance to provide great examples of internet legal resources. According to 2008 Legal Technology Survey report, 82.6% of lawyers regularly and occasionally use the internet legal resources for their legal research. And more than 50% of lawyers actually look at the internet resources when they're researching general news, lawyers, and companies, and legal news, and public records. So today, we have these contents. First, we'll show you 8 different evaluating standards for internet legal resources, and also we'll give you examples of internet legal resources. And then finally, we'll mainly discuss about the consideration for incorporating free internet research tools into research strategy. So, Mr. Truman, let's start.
Thanks very much. I'd like to initially thank you for taking the time to join us to consider this question about how to integrate free legal resources and research tools into your courses, ultimately into your research strategy. We hope to leave enough time for some questions and some real discussion, because I think there are probably a few people in here who have been doing some significant thought about it. Been impressed that even already that I've met significant people who are working really effectively in this field. And hopefully we can have more of a workshop, more of a discussion about that by the end of this program. We want to suggest how to incorporate these tools into your pedagogy and into your practice. Before I go too far, I want to thank my co-presenter, Juice Lee, for inviting me to do this. I primarily want to say that a lot of this has to do with some of the research that he did and our discussions to really inspire what I'm talking about. I also want to give credit to Todd Beanie at Georgetown University. He's really researching this issue about low cost and free legal resources. And he's created a fantastic research guide on the topic. And it's a popular guide that I think has gone viral in the blogosphere. So I apologize in advance if you catch the bug that makes you think about free resources half as much as the two of us do. So I'd like to start just by a quick story about CLE. A few years ago, not that many years ago, about 3 years ago, I gave a talk at a large firm, a well-funded firm that were all sort of junior associates, and they didn't know very much about print or free resources, and they were told that they had to start their research either in the digest or possibly some other resource. They weren't supposed to start using keyword search. So it's like one of the main things they want to know is what the heck is this digest thing? So I thought about that last year when I was talking to an accountant for another large law firm who said that their managing partners made it clear that no attorney could start a research question using Westlaw or Lexis. Because all of their attorneys had free access to Fastcase or CaseMaker, they were authorized to use that first, and especially the younger associates were supposed to try to explain how they had started their research, and then use Westlaw or Lexis, or then use some of the other resources. It made me really think that things are changing. 10 years ago, I looked at the question of free and low-cost research tools, and pretty much decided at that point it wasn't worth thinking about beyond a teachable moment. They were just fantastic sources of teachable moments. If you wanted to talk to students about citators, the best thing to do is take a look at what Versus Law was suggesting, or looking at what Lois Law was creating. And then we could really evaluate them. If you want to talk about annotated code, trying to see how Lois Law was creating an annotated code was the best way to talk about that and evaluate it. But besides that, it didn't seem worth going into much depth about. What's changed in the last 10 years? One is I think that a lot of the free sources are gathering together. Alt law Castilla, Basque case, they're working together to solve the problem, coming up with innovative new search strategies. They're providing more content that has good value. There are also the other things that state bars are getting involved in this issue, right? State bars throughout the country are providing free resources to their bar members, and suddenly it's becoming something that's not just sort of a sideline, but something that partners recognize it's a benefit of bar membership. Law firms are paying for the bar memberships, and they should get some value out of that. Government agencies, I think, is the third thing that's in here. California, I know, has created a database of all California cases. And that's through a cooperation with a major vendor, but it's free to the public. And it's just an effort from government agencies, bar associations, and entrepreneurs to look at this issue that's creating some better results. So as Drew said, we are going to try to provide, the main thing that we want to do is provide you with some sort of a criteria for evaluating them. And hopefully these criteria will be something that you could incorporate into your class. And it's something that you can teach your students to use as they do their research from now on. And they're pretty great standards: coverage, currency, accuracy, issue of value-added features. Then I look at authority, appropriateness, cost, perspective, and design and usability. So what does that all mean? So coverage. So what is coverage? What's the depth and breadth of it? Especially when I'm looking at case law, I'm thinking about how many years there are. Will you be able to look at older cases? If you're looking at a case law database, you're trying to figure out if you're missing any jurisdictions. In a few examples, in at least one example we're looking at, you'll see a database of district court opinions where there's one district that's not represented. Also, it's like, are there the tools that you need to actually analyze the question? If you're looking at a case, a database that has case law but no statutes and regulations, how can you answer some of the questions that you need to answer? Currency, that's the other big one, and I think that's the second one that I think about. How updated are your resources? Does it give you a statement about how updated it is? Do you know how often they're uploading information? What's the revision cycle, especially if you're looking at a statute or regulation? What about accuracy? And accuracy, I'm thinking about in terms of, can you identify what's missing? Can you identify if there's any sort of thing that's missing within the document that you're looking at? Are there errors in the document? Is it providing you some information that will help you to identify whether there's anything missing? And I think at this point, it's worth thinking about all the work that AALL and GPO is doing for authentication. And I think GPO, their new product of FedSys, the Federal Depository System, is the first time that any free resource, and really any resource at all, is looking at this question of, can you identify whether this document has actually been published by the person that you say it's been published by, and can you identify whether it's been altered since it's been published? FedSys has worked, and with the tool that's now generally available just in Adobe Acrobat 8, you can create a digital signature which will say that this is created by the author, and it will tell you if there's been any alteration or any changes to your document since then. So it's one of the few times that I'll talk about authentication, but I think it's of vital importance for legal research, and it's something that really all providers should be providing. And so far, I give the shout out to FedSys since they're the first ones who's done it. So the value-added services is, I think, that I really focus in on in the course. And this is primarily deals with case law, right? If you're dealing in case law, you're looking at questions about search features, sort features, and document features. In terms of searching, can you just find a known citation? That's not something that you can do in a lot of the free sources. Can you search over multiple jurisdictions, or are you stuck with doing the same search in every district court that you want to look at? Do you have the value-added features that you need, especially in terms of looking at statutes or regulations? You have an index, you have a table of contents, your popular names table. How can you do a statutory search if you don't have one of those sort of features? And then ultimately, you just need to know about a citator. I mean, that is one of the nuts that that has not yet been fully cracked, but this is a great issue about searching. Can you try to do something? And I think there have been some innovative attempts at citating searches. And I make a comment that I don't think of citators just in the classic way of looking at are there new cases that cite to my case. I'm also thinking about, if I'm looking for a statute in a case law database, that ultimately creates an annotated code. That's one of the other ways of using a citator as a search tool, is why I put it there as a search tool. Sorting is, can you control the way you review them? Right now, it's interesting. It'd be great to be able to sort by relevance, or sort by authority, sort by jurisdiction, sort by date, or sort by number of times cited. That's something that very few services do, and as we take a look at some of them, there are innovative ways of looking at that. The document features, those are sort of the basics, the pinpoint pagination and hyperlinks into documents. Those are ultimately two important things in terms of citation. If you look at a document, the California Free site that I mentioned, they don't have pinpoint sites for much of their cases. It's something that attorneys are reluctant to look at, or reluctant to even think about, because they know they're going to have to look someplace else. And I should say, if there are anything that sort of jumps out at you during this presentation, feel free to mention it, but I hope to have more time for that later as well. All right, so what about authority? Authority is sort of the ultimate sort of question about who's the author. Can you identify if the author has the authority or the qualifications needed to make these assertions? Can you tell what jurisdiction cases are coming from, or codes are coming from? This comes into play a lot with secondary sources. If you're reading something, you just need to know who it is that's written it, but then you also need to know, is there a way to verify the citations, or the information that they're including in there? Sometimes even more than figuring out who the author is, I think it's important to know what they're saying and where they're getting the source of their information for anything that they're asserting. A couple of the last two things I'm putting together on a single site: appropriateness and perspective. Appropriateness is just, again, this comes up a lot more in secondary sources. Is this the audience that you're looking for? If you're a practitioner and you find something that looks like it's made for high school students, clearly that's not going to have the language, illustrations, or the format that's adequate to what you're looking for, and vice versa. Perspective, is this an objective piece, or is this a biased? Can you get a sense of what the goals are? And then cost. And I think cost is one of the biggest questions that you're going to have to use when you evaluate this. What's the overall cost? And here I'm thinking about comparing to other online or other print resources in terms of how much you have to pay for it, but more importantly, I think how much of it is the time. I think Westlaw and Lexis have both created a system where the value of your time is going to be more than the cost of the search that you do. So if your search runs you X dollars and it would cost you less, the value of your time is less to do it in a print resource, you should do it in a print resource. But typically, Westlaw and Lexis, they have the value-added services that makes it you're able to do your search quickly, effectively, and get along with your other analysis. If a low cost or a free resource is going to take you longer to use, longer to figure out, I say move on and go to another site. In terms of presentation design, I think I'm going to turn this over now to Juice to let him take a look at it. This has some really innovative ideas.
Thank you, Kimmer. I'll mainly talk about usability. Usability also provides us with good evaluation standards for various internet legal resources. According to the usability guidelines, actually I put the source on the bottom. According to the usability guideline produced by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, users define usability as their perception of how consistent, organized, efficient, and easy to use it is to accomplish a task within a system. So I actually found 6 grave mistakes made by legal websites. Out of top 10 mistakes, actually, this is originally designed by Jacob Nelson, who is the most renowned scholar in the usability scope. He's actually introduced as a leading guru of usability, according to CNN and New York Times and U.S. World News, U.S. News and World Report. So first mistake legal website usually make is a lack of consistency, which means a website does not behave the same and not easy to become familiar and has lots of directions. Consistency is one of the powerful principles in usability. When things behave the same, users don't have to worry about what will happen next. Users acting on their expectations on the website based on their prior experience. If they have a bad experience from the website, they won't come back to the website, or even if they come back to the website, it's not easy to find the same type of material from the website. They spend the same time and cost. So this is one of the example of a bad consistency website. This is a GPO website. Actually, they can transfer this website to Federal Digital System, but anyway, they did not follow the familiar design conventions. So on top and left side, they don't actually provide any navigation bars. So you actually can figure out which options they provide when you're visiting this website. Also, there's a list of headings in the middle. Actually does not provide the list logically or by importance. They just put there. And then search box at the bottom, it does not have name as a search. It has a name of a catalog. So, and then they put this search box at the bottom instead of usually the website providing search box on top. So users, first time users, when they visiting this website, it will be very hard to find this search box at the bottom. Phew, okay. And another mistake legal websites make is a lack of scannability, which means the website does not provide any list and headings, so it is hard to scan. This is a heat map produced by Jacob Nelson. The red spot on the screen is the where users look the most, and the yellow spot is the less, and the blue spots that usually users don't look at. So according to Jacob Nelson, users' eye tracking pattern has F pattern. So users read across in a horizontal movement upper part of the content first, and then they move down a little bit. They read across in a second horizontal movement to the shorter area than the upper part, and then they finally read vertically to the bottom. So actually, I participated in these experiments last year, and then my friend used the usability machine. Actually, she listed $3,000 per month, and then I look at the 10 different websites. I was scanning the websites too. I mainly look at the headings. I mainly look at the upper part of the screen. So, and then I look at the left side of the screen. So in this way, users scan the website. So, and then it is well known, users spend a lot of time in scanning than reading, and well-developed headings actually facilitate this scanning and reading procedure. And another big mistake legal websites make is bad searching design, which is not visible and not simple. It means it does not provide any search box. Users, when they visiting the website, they actually fast and furiously looking for any little tiny box they can type in. And sometimes the website does not show the scope of search. Users, they usually think they are in a different website than the one they're actually searching. And then Another mistake is it does not show results by importance. Sometimes they list the results chronologically, sometimes by alphabetically. So this is one of the examples of a bad scannability. The website, the American Law Sources Online. So nobody is here from this website, right? Okay. So because this website does not, they starting from the pause and the wall of text from the first homepage. It does not provide any headings one by one. So people probably lost it when they visiting this website after being introduced by professors. They're probably having hard time to scan, and they probably don't know what the options this website provides. Another mistake is does not change the color of visited links. It is very important knowing the present and past location when you're doing the search. Like this website, this is an immigration track website. Actually, all these text at the bottom is hyperlinks. When you're visiting when you're visiting one of these links from here, it doesn't change color. Actually, actually changing color, which has been just a click, and giving feedback to let users to know where they are, actually make it easier to decide where to go next. And the Westlaw database actually doing the really good job. Actually, they changing color when you click one of the links from the result, but the Lexis actually does not provide the things. No, Lexis provided here, okay? And then another mistake is providing PDF files for online searching. When you're using the PDF files for searching, it actually raises the accessibility problem. This is one of the most important principles in the usability. Accessibility means when blind people or poor-sighted people trying to visit this website and to try to read and search any content on the website, even if they use a special machine, they can read the PDF file. One of our professors actually has very poor eyesight, and when I provided the PDF files to him, actually he couldn't read that. So PDF files always has the accessibility problem. Also, it takes a longer time to download PDF files. Also, it does not have any internal navigation function in the PDF files. So when you have like 200 pages PDF files, it is hard to search the relevant information. Also, okay. So this is the US Supreme Court website. As you can see from here, they actually provide the list of the recent opinions. But when you click one of the opinion, one of the list from there, it'll just provide the PDF file. So when new opinions came out, unless you actually watching every week what is in the opinion, it is hard to search based on your search terms. So this is many court website does not provide HTML searching function, or like a text does not provide the text file. So it is always good to provide PDF files, HTML, and text files together. Lastly, opening new browser windows is another mistake. This is actually disables your back button, so users usually having hard time to go back to the original results. So according to the Nelson, is more like a vacuum salesperson, starting there like vacuuming after putting the ashtray on the carpet first. I don't know. So what does it mean? Okay. So this is another good example. This is a good example of the website provides good consistency and scannability and good navigation function and simple and search function. So as you can see, they provide the search box on top of the screen, so which is normally located there in any other websites too. And then the navigation bars are prominently displayed on top in red color. And then the list, the headings actually enumerated very logically. So news, publication, forms, law, licensing, registration, search records. And then the users are very easy to scan these titles because it's provided in like the bold and dark green color. And then the headings actually are very descriptive, and you can easily tell what's in there. And another good the website which provides good usability is Lexis One. As you can see, in the first horizontal movement, you can see the scope of search first. So this is a free case law, and you can search the last 10 years of state and federal courts and Supreme Court opinions from 1789 to present. Actually, it's wrong. Yeah, it starts from 1791, right? And then they provide a search box just in the middle, right? Just in the middle. So when users come to this website, they can put the search terms right on the spot in the search box. And also you can limit your search scope choosing from the scroll down menu. So it's very easy to narrow down your scope of search. And then the colors of this website is black and green. And then they clearly provided the hyperlinks with the underline and red color. So this is the end of my usability presentation. If you have a good usability, if the website has applied the good usability principles, it actually reduces your searching time, reduce your learning time, and reduce your errors, and also will increase your satisfaction. So you can visit this website and can save time and money more. So thank you. And then Kuma will summarize all these evaluation standards.
Well, great. I think we can start the feeding frenzy now, looking at some different websites. But I think what we want to do, as we look at some other websites and when we think about these others, is not a question about whether you want to use these tools or not, or whether you want to purchase them in terms of, and put them into your toolbox. But ultimately, it's sort of whether you want to take them out and suggest that one of your clients, one of your patrons, or one of your students use that tool for your particular question. So all of the sources that we've talked about so far, that we continue to talk about, are fantastic in what they do. They provide some valuable resources and valuable insights into the research project and system. But we need to evaluate them and teach our students how to evaluate them. So let's take a look at a few, starting with some of the free resources and some of the low-cost resources, and then think about how to integrate them into a search strategy. In terms of free, I wanted to highlight some of the ones out there right now. The AltLaw, FindLaw, Justia, Lexis One, Poseidon, and the Public Law Library. And my second of the unabashed plugs is for Todd Beanie's research guide on the low cost of free research tools. Also, if you haven't had a chance to look at it, if you look at our Cali presentation site, there we have a handout that you can download that has a link to his site, as well as the standards that we've talked about and a few others, a little bit more information. So overall, what do I think about them? There are rich sources of case law primarily. Most of them are not great for statutes or regulations. No site is really comprehensive in the free world, in this set of free resources. They have limited search features. Some are better than others. And secondary sources are either non-existent or severely limited. Let me see if this will work today. I wanted to take a look at Poseidon. Poseidon, I think, does a great job of pulling together a lot of these ideas and giving you some way of identifying what's going on. So what I wanted to do is answer the question, that I was given recently is, what is Justice Sotomayor's stance on class action certification? How does she handle how does she handle that question? In Poseidon, what they do that's nice is they give you information right on the website about how you can sort your information. You can rank it by authority, by chronology, by jurisdiction. You can limit your search to some fields. It tells you what jurisdictions you have. Let's see if this works. Ooh. Well, it'll come back. Is that load? It's worth a second if it does work. There we go. Okay. So from the Poseidon page, I can look at the database list, and I can see that it's got the full list of the Supreme Court opinions. It's got the Federal Reporter's second series from 1950 on. Third series goes up to August 2006. After 2006, they don't have official citations, but they do have some information. But after 2008, it's unreliable, or that's the way I take it. In terms of the federal district court cases, they only have them since 2004. And right from the list, you can see that there are some jurisdictions that are missing. I don't think if I hadn't looked, I wouldn't have thought about that. So Illinois Central District doesn't really answer. It's not relevant to my particular question, but it's something to think about if I'm using this source. In terms of state materials, it gets much more scattershot. 2007 is when Alaska starts. Others in 1996. Others go back to 85. And right there on their website, they will tell you that this is something that you shouldn't rely on in terms of state resources. But it's there, and it's not evident unless you take the time to take a look at this database. All right, so in terms of the search features, from this page you can't see it, but you click on the jurisdiction link, and then you can take a look at that. Again, you can organize it by authority, chronology, or jurisdiction. It explains the search algorithm that they have created some sort of a fuzzy search that will let you find other relevant documents even if they don't have your search terms if you want to. And again, they have the Boolean operators that they explain exactly how it works. It's slightly different than you would have expected. You have to use plus symbols or minus symbols. You can use a phrase search. The proximity search is completely different than what I would have expected. If I want presidential and powers within 10 words of each other, I've got to put in quotation, presidential, powers, close quote, tilde 10. So the great thing here is now we've got a sense of what we can do and how we can run a search. I wanted to also find out about wildcard searching. Explains that you can have the an asterisk or a question mark, and it explains all of the different research tools. Seems pretty user-friendly, pretty accessible. I think I'm going to try to move on from there. So here's one of the results that I found. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of the things. They've got, in terms of features, they have citations when it's available. You have a pinpoint citation when it's available. It has, on the left, it has all the other search results, a fairly common thing. The layout looks different. It's organized in a different way. But it also has a direct link into a citator, which I think 10 years ago was pretty rare to get any sort of citator. Now it's getting much more common to have at least an effort at identifying the other cases that have cited to my known case. There's no sense of what the scope is of these cases, why they're citing to them. There's no sense of the depth of the citation. But there is some sort of indication of these are cases I should look at. So, and let's think about Poseidon then in terms of all of those categories. Coverage. It's got great for federal cases, at least for the circuit cases, weak for state cases. In terms of statutes, you can go to Poseidon. They don't do anything to identify what the database is or how they get their information. In terms of currency, it's hard to tell, especially for statutes. In terms of accuracy, again, it's hard to tell. You don't have a clear sense of where the information is coming from and how current it is. In terms of authority, there's no watermark. There's no way of saying that this is the actual documents you're looking that they're saying they are. But we can pretty much trust them. What are some of the great value added? You've got citations. You have pinpoint citations. You have some advanced features. You have the citator. You have the ability to find a known citation. Biggest weakness is that you can't sort your citator results. It's hard to sort your results. And what about the issue about appropriateness? It's probably useful for a sophisticated researcher. It's probably not useful for somebody who is not a sophisticated researcher. If you don't know to look for your scope notes, it's not worthwhile. Quick results in terms of cost. In terms of costs, it's going to give you an incomplete set of results. So it's got a questionable amount of value in terms of cost. Perspective, it seems to be pretty objective. Design usability, it seems to be fairly good. Justia. Justia is great in terms of content. It has a lot of information. It's got sort of decent browse features, but what they have in terms of search features is it's hard to identify what the search features are. It has limited, it has some standardized and pinpoint citation, but that's limited. There's no easily identified citator, there's no federated searching, there's no way to search results. Is it a leader in terms of providing us cases that were not previously provided as a leader in helping build a research tool? Yeah. Is it something that I would recommend a novice user use or either an advanced researcher use? Probably not. Is it great for if the case is in the database to go to it and use it to read a case? Yeah, it probably is. And I think that's why Eureka looks at Justia often. If you're not familiar with Eureka, it's the plugin that works with Firefox. If you have a citation, it'll look for it on the free web, and it integrates pretty well with Justia. All right. Let's look at Fastcase is another one that I want to take a look at. Fastcase is one of the low-cost search providers. It's it's one that's been working with a lot of bar associations to make it available. And I did my search of Sotomayor and class action within 10 of certification. I put it into all federal appellate. And I ran that search. I apologize, the computer is really acting up today.
Jureeka.
Jureeka.
Is Jureeka currently offering any choice of viewing, or do they route you to one specific site for everything?
As far as I can tell right now, Jureeka doesn't offer you any course of viewing. Does anybody know differently? So, two things that Fastcase does well. Fastcase lets you search your results in two different ways. It lets you search your results by relevancy, based on the relevancy scheme. It lets you search it by authority. It lets you search it by jurisdiction. It lets you search by how often your case has been cited. So that's a really innovative, different way of looking at search results. The other thing that it does, it has a fantastic citator, which I wish I had a better ability to show you. The citator gives you information in two different formats. One, it has the size of the circle, tells you how often your case has been cited. And it has an internal circle, which tells you how often your case has been cited within your search results. So if you have 200 search results, it tells you that you can identify the big fat circles. Those are the ones that are probably important, that have been cited the most often. And if it has an internal circle that's also large, it tells you that it's been cited for some of the same propositions your case is important for. And it's a fantastic way to identify quickly and effectively sort of the places you should look at first. So that's, in terms of analyzing your citator, or using your search results in an innovative way. I think that's a really great thing to look at. So what about statutes? They think the Legal Information Institute does a fantastic way of providing high-quality free internet resources for statutes especially. Your statutes database lets you identify quickly from the homepage what the resource is using. It's using the House of Representatives information, and it's also using Thomas to update effectively what's going on so it tells you that it's current through what the House of Representatives makes available on their free website, and it's gone through the value-added effort of telling you that updating the information directly through this thing is. It has totally gone rogue. Wow, we'll just go from we'll just go from the notes. How about that? I think that'll work better anyhow. So from that, the Legal Information Institute, in terms of accuracy, it tells you right away what the source is. It tells you authority, the source is coming from the federal government. It tells you currency, that it's enhanced by using information directly from the government agencies. In terms of appropriateness, yeah, it gives you information that is appropriate for anybody who knows how the federal government works to use the site. In terms of cost, it's slower. It's going to take you some time to think about it, but it's going to get you the information you need in terms of perspective. It's not biased, at least. All right. So what about secondary sources? And if my computer was working better, we could take a look at the slide that I have about that. It's close.
We had it for a second.
All right, so secondary sources. I think ultimately when you're thinking about secondary sources, this is where all those other ideas come into play. You can't really rely on anything that you read in a secondary source, whether it's published or whether it's online, until you can identify what the sites are leading you to. Your secondary source is only as good as your citations involved. It doesn't matter if it's published by Lexis, Westlaw, or a blog. Ultimately, you're trying to find out the primary authority that's behind those assertions. And that's probably more important than how authoritative the author is. So what do we do with that? How do you integrate that all into your classroom? All those standards. There we go. So at least here's a better screenshot of the bubbles from Fastcase, if you haven't looked at it. So that lets you see pretty quickly the cases that you want to take a look at the most. And you can sort it by jurisdiction, you can sort it by time, you can sort it by their relevancy rankings. Here's a screenshot from CaseMaker. I like the fact that they were putting the citations, the citator results, right there on the same screen as you're looking at with your cases. So instead of taking a look at what are the other relevant results, you can identify exactly how important this case is right here by how often it's cited and so where it's been cited by. Go ahead.
We're going to switch from CaseMaker to Fastcase, but when I looked at CaseMaker closely, I found some wrong volume numbers. And for something like the Oregon Administrative Regulations, were updated monthly for free on the official site. It wasn't updated for 9 or 10 months on CaseMaker. Unreliable with inaccuracy. So I'm not sure about the newer version or how much it goes about a year ago.
Is anybody else finding sort of surprising inconsistencies? I think ultimately that's one of the biggest questions: is how often, how well you can rely on them. And these are, especially CaseMaker, it's a company. It's not somebody who's just interested in creating a new search engine. They have a business model. I think ultimately looking at the free resources on the internet is primarily useful because people are just using them. I mean, if you were doing a research about international parental child abduction, if you did a quick and dirty search on that, you'd find a lot of information here. A lot of those results, even from a Google search, goes directly into government agency sites or other reputable places. By using them, you are going to get a lot of really good information. What do you do with that with your students? I think the mantra that I've always had is that thinking about, I think Dan Dabney had the best story about that. You'd love to talk about dog law. And dog law, there's a book about dog law, and there's a whole chapter about mange and what to do if your dog has mange. And he said, who on earth would have an article about mange and dog? When you're a lawyer, you know that you're really thinking about warranty, right? That's a warranty question. It's a question about, is there an express or implied warranty in your dog? And until you know that bit of information, you can't effectively do a search. Arguably using the free websites that we've talked about, and if you use the standards that Juices and I offered, you can evaluate those searches and then find some good citations that you can go into Westlaw or Lexis and use the tools that they have. They've got headnotes. They've got citators that are probably better than the ones that we've used, that we've looked at. And those are going to really help you to hone in on to answer your question. And I think that's what I do when I talk about this with my students. The other thing is I continue to do that thing that I talked about before with the teachable moment. As we analyze that fast-case citator, we're analyzing citators. We're thinking about citators. As we analyze how fast-case illustrates the results, you're really sort of looking at that in a more intellectual way. I think when we teach advanced legal research especially, we're looking beyond the question of just can we get them to understand how to do a research problem, but you're going further to answering the question of can they effectively evaluate their research tools and pick the right one. And I think the other thought I have is that what Paul Ohm says, that when he was learning about legal research and looking at free tools, he was inspired to build a better one. So if you can build a better research, you can inspire students to build better research tools, I think that's worthwhile investigating. So what have other people found in terms of free resources? Are there other uses or are there other thoughts that you have? How have you been able to incorporate them into your classroom?
Well, Cornell has a site that we use frequently, and then FindLaw. That was on your list earlier, but
in my advanced legal research class, I try to cover a lot of these sources, but I don't give them a whole lot of attention. At one class, and we talked about it, and it's just one of the principles I think all of us has come to learn in our lives. You know, you get what you pay for, and caution them to use free sources with a lot of caution, and go through the standard things that you were talking about. You know, the ways to evaluate the authority, who the author is, who the publisher is, and then you just have to be careful with these. I think that's, none of them is, I haven't felt entirely comfortable with any of them.
I think probably when it comes more into play is when somebody's actually going into practice. You know, when you're in school, it's kind of, you get to use the best of everything and unlimited, and when it really comes home is when you actually are in a law firm and in the economy like it is. You know, I have lots of friends that are in practice, and they come to us all the time and want to know, how can I do this more cheaply? What is there available? I can't keep paying Westlaw what I'm paying with. You know, what else can I do? And I think that combining is really the key to it. If you can take a few minutes, you know, and even Google your search terms, and then go to Fastcase and find some stuff, and then just spend 10 minutes going through Westlaw. I think that's a great way to do it.
Is there something back?
Just one thing that I think is sometimes underappreciated with the free tools, which, by the way, I run all law, is that it's because they're free and available on the web, they're very easy to integrate with other materials that are also on the web. You can hyperlink to them, you can blog about them, and nobody has to enter a Westlaw password to go look at a case. So they can be useful in that respect.
Well, you know, when I teach it also, I point out that some of the larger portals do have some nice bells and whistles. A lot of times they end up taking you to the official site anyway. So sometimes you can just start there rather than the large portal and get to know your own jurisdiction. You know, if you're in Oregon or Washington, you know those statutes from the official website. But I also tell students to double check their sites, perhaps in print or something, because these free or low-cost services may not be accurate. So you really should double check the work, and I always mention that to students as well.
Let me ask you this. Why would we be any less accurate than anybody else? Why would my operation, the LII, be any less accurate than any other source? Other than currency, and in that case, that's actually a problem with the government, but we'll discuss that later. I mean, is there any a priori reason why we would be any lower in quality than Westlaw?
Well,
in terms of the accuracy of the text?
I don't have an opinion on that.
I mean, I think that LII does a great job of sort of identifying a way to evaluate that. And I think that's what is something that all free internet or all resources should do. I mean, and as we train students to do that, it's important to train them to think about that. LLI puts that right up front, and makes it easy to understand. Others make it fairly easy, and others are sort of have not made a bold statement about how you can check the accuracy of the information you have. Unless you can do that, I think you have to be cautious about what you use.
It seems to me that the way you're pitching this program was the idea that to start your research, you should use these. And I think we're evaluating it at a different level. We're evaluating it as the final product. And so, you know, I'm going to probably say something that's maybe slightly inappropriate, but I'm going to do it anyway. When I start some research projects with students, I use Wikipedia. Okay?
In some ways, I think that's a great answer.
Right. Because it gives them what I think to be a pretty proper citation to the primary source or a taxonomy of words that would be used in the research. And I think that we hold that free resource for that. And I think that we should evaluate these free resources at that same level. And although I love the list of criteria, we're trying to say this is not a Lexis, when what we've got is, I'm going to date myself, a Yugo. Okay? And so I think, you know, somebody said you get what you pay for, but sometimes all we really want is not a Ziploc sandwich bag. We want one that folds over because we're going to throw it away anyway. Why pay so much money for just your sandwich bag? You know, I mean, really, right?
I liked it better with cars.
You know, I'm having a problem because you had such a high bar for these sites, and I'm not so sure that's really fair.
I think that one thing that often gets overlooked in this discussion, and Dan, Debbie, and I recently had a quasi-exchange about this, and Dan and I have been friends for many years. You know, yeah, West is a Lamborghini. There's no question about it. A lot of people just trying to get to work, and they tend not to drive Lamborghinis. I mean, we are a site for lawyers, certainly. They are a large part of our audience, certainly. We try to reach those standards, certainly. But we also realize that there are people out there who are engaged in very different legal research enterprise from what we teach in law schools, which I think we tend to teach as if every student is involved in multi-billion-dollar commercial litigation. There are people out there who are making use of law in professional contexts that will never see inside of a courtroom or any form of civil action or a lawsuit. They're taking bearings on what a professional has told them. They're in some related profession. It's some hospital manager looking at public benefits law. You know, they are not doing the same thing that we are doing. And for the most part, if you think of legal research as insurance, and I think most of us do on some level, they're insuring for the value of the goods. I mean, one of the things that I think comes as a shock to students when they find their way into practice is that nobody's going to throw $10,000 worth of research at a $500 case. Yeah. And in that respect, I have to question whether we really are doing the right thing by saying, hey, kids, go out and do $10,000 worth of research all the time. We're not really doing very good at reaching a standard of what's good enough.
Chris, yeah.
And I think it's actually more important that we spend a lot more time teaching people how to evaluate their tools. Not just free, not just, but we set up problems where they have to go out and evaluate. Because if we teach them in first year legal research or even in advanced legal research, by the time they take the bar and go into practice, there may be a whole different set of resources that they can use. So the skill that they need is not necessarily, it's not that they don't need the skill of searching whatever database on whoever, but what they really need to be able to do is evaluate and have that conversation. We need to spend a lot more time on that.
I
just want to say that when I teach my advanced legal research class, I discuss the issues you talk about. I mean, since it's business law, one of the sites we use is the AFL-CIO Pay Watch. Of course, I ask the students, what opinion, where are these guys coming from? and I show how a good website like that one actually, it breaks it down where they got their figures and how it differs from where the SEC figures out their material. And one other thing I want to add, the best way to get the students to use the free websites is to put the weapon in the fighter's hands. What I mean is all my students have laptops and we sit around in a circle. I give them a different company to research each week or whatever, some subject, and we go around. Each student is actually using it as opposed to me being up there just demonstrating.
Any other comments? Thank you very much for participating.